Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Wanted Dead. I played on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on the Series S, PS4, PS5, and PC. So you play as a cop named Stone. She is in the future. She has a cybernetic arm. She's sort of a badass, and as she puts it, she's more of an enforcer than a detective. As for the story of this game, it's honestly really meandering and sparse, and it feels like maybe they had an idea, but they didn't know how to tell it. Like, it doesn't feel like there are any high-quality storytellers in this development team. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, I didn't beat this game. And as the review goes on, you're going to understand why. But I also want to say, the dialogue in this game is so poorly written, it's just terrible. I don't know if it's bad translations, I don't know, and I don't care, it's awful. Characters are changing, basically personality, on a dime, and it's just weird and jarring constantly. And since we're talking about dialogue, let's get into the audio, and the voiceover work is bad. Very, very, very bad. Most of the voice actors, it sounds like English is not their first language, maybe not even their third or fourth language, so them speaking English, ooh, it hurts. It's very stilted, and the right emphasis just isn't there, and you get these weird jarring moments where they say something really calmly and then something really excitedly afterwards, and it just doesn't make sense. As for the sound effects, they're not that good. I didn't notice any missing ones, so there's that, but they're all very boring and generic. All the reload sounds are the same, the sword sounds are always the same, it's just, they're not enough. And then I actually enjoyed the music, although there was one level where there was no music, and that was weird and disappointing because overall that was one of the best things in the game. Not good enough that I would want to own the soundtrack though. Now let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and if you're wondering why the thumbnail has my phone in it, it's because I was showing you the list of notes I have. Understand, I take notes when I play a game, if I need them, and I needed them. This is a third-person action game. You gain XP essentially to level up abilities, and you can basically max out your skill tree before you're like halfway done with the game. And I did read somewhere that there's New Game Plus, but why do you need New Game Plus when you can already max yourself out? And you're thinking maybe it's because you want to replay this game going through like God mode style. The problem is I maxed myself out and I never felt God mode. And it's not because this is one of those games that feels like it's tough but fair. No, it's tough because it's busted. You've got the difficulty level, which doesn't spike, it doesn't go on a curve, it's on a goddamn roller coaster throughout the entire game. There were times where the very first fight was maybe your hardest throughout the entire level, or it would just be up and down. I had one where it took me at least a dozen tries to get through a fight. I finally got through it, and I got onto the boss, and I beat him immediately. He was laughably easy. Early on in the game, they just throw random mini games in, like you have to eat ramen, and it's like a rhythm-based eating of ramen, but it didn't read my button prompts at all. I eventually gave up trying to match the button prompts because it just did such a poor job. Or then there was karaoke where the line going across where I'm supposed to hit the buttons would like just jerk around. Its speed would change inconsistently. So even the mini games aren't functioning the way they should. And also, like, when you're out actually playing and you're doing the combat, it didn't feel like they knew what they wanted to do, because they give you cover-based shooting mechanics, but the enemy AI is so janky that that doesn't work well. But then it feels like it's supposed to be like a dope, over-the-top action game, and you're supposed to be John Wicking around with a sword and a pistol. The problem is, none of those mechanics work well enough to make that a fun way to play the game. Guarding with your sword only works about 60-70% of the time. Parrying only works about 60% of the time. Same with your gun counter. And then, even when those work, they don't necessarily stop the attack. There are guys with grenade launchers who you gun counter them, and guess what? You still get hit with the grenade. Or when a character has a combo that they use and you parry it, it doesn't stop the combo. But it does open you for attack. It doesn't work. You're supposed to be able to like combo your pistol with your katana, but there's like an auto lock-on system, and it works fine when you're just swinging the katana, and it works fine when you're just using the pistol. But when you try and follow up pistol attacks with the katana, she'll shoot them accurately, but then she'll start swinging at a goddamn wall with her katana instead of going after the enemy. And you may be like, well, you need to push the stick in that direction. No, I tried that, I did that, it didn't work. The number of times I died because she started swinging at a goddamn wall was just infuriating. Now, I mentioned some John Wicking around, and that's literally the best part of the game, is that when you do it, or the game cooperates with you, because most of the enemies die before you're capable of it, you can get these cool-looking John Wick-esque executions, and that's literally the best part of the game. And they did try to get mechanics in there that would help, but you never have enough bullets for the, like, cover shooter element to work. And you take so much damage so quickly that the cool action stuff doesn't work. And you can replenish health with katana strikes, but you're so slow with the katana that it doesn't heal enough for you to survive some of these encounters, especially when some of these enemies are doing half of your health in one attack. I also mentioned that the enemy's AI doesn't function for some of this stuff. Your ally's AI isn't amazing either. There could be one enemy coming at you and none of them will be attacking him. Admittedly, they can kill enemies, but it takes them so long sometimes that it's painful. There were also times where the enemies were shooting like their grenade launchers through walls, but my character can't even throw a grenade successfully over a railing. They had a bunch of good ideas, but every single one of them was poorly implemented. The game just barely functions. That applies to the camera as well. Oh my god. The camera will just whip around at times and just leave you staring at a wall. And if an enemy is not in the camera sight, or a grenade that's been thrown is not in the camera sight, it doesn't exist except for the part where it can kill you. Your character does not acknowledge that a grenade landed behind them. The indicators that pop up don't acknowledge that there's a grenade there because the camera's not looking at it. Also, like, the layout of this world doesn't work. Like, they put you in these really tight spaces at a certain point, and your character just doesn't really function well in there. The combat of the game does not function well in these tight spaces, especially with the shit camera that just backs you up so you can't see anything or whips around into a wall. Let's get into the controls, and the controls, again, just like I mentioned earlier, barely functional. They work just well enough, but they are not what you need. They are not responsive enough. A great example is just navigating menus. There are times where the cursor is lagging in menus. You're pushing down to go down on the skill tree and it's not going down. I mean, that is the best example of just how poor the controls are in the game at large. And then last but not least, the graphics and visuals. I'm gonna say, I think the visual design was pretty cool. The character designs are pretty cool, the city designs, I like all of that. I think the weapons fit the over-the-top aesthetic, the characters all fit that. There is this weird thing where you go into some things and it's when your character's like having a flashback, and not even always for flashbacks now that I think about it, but it'll just be suddenly a hand-drawn anime cutscene. Maybe not hand-drawn, but it's an anime cutscene. And then you'll go back to the regular gameplay. It's very bizarre and out of place, and I mean, it could have been done in a cool way, but like, they just used it whenever they felt like it. But overall, like I said, outfits, city, weapons, I think all of those are cool. I think the enemy designs, not as many as they really need when you're fighting that many enemies, but they're all really cool. Unfortunately, the graphics just don't bring them to life in a satisfying manner. There are times where you can literally see the pixels making things up, like straight lines are really jagged that shouldn't be, and they're clearly not meant to be. But then there are times in certain cutscenes where there's like really cool lighting and they do a good job with that, but then lighting throughout other places is just complete trash. And I will say they did a good job animating those John Wick style like executions that I mentioned. I thought those were cool and those worked well, but a lot of the other animations are pretty janky. A lot of things move in a way that's just like, it's just good enough, but it's still a little weird. But then like the way they portray the performances in a lot of the cutscenes is just awkward and doesn't work, which fits with the horrible dialogue. I'm not gonna say this is the ugliest game I've ever played, but it's not a good looking game. And I really just don't want to focus on that all day. I don't have too much to say about the visuals. They just could have done more. We've seen better from smaller developers. Okay, so to wrap this up, as I said, I didn't beat this game, and you may be thinking, because I did get a little fiery there, oh, he got angry about the game and he quit. No, I reached a zen point where I realized that this game was never going to redeem itself, and it wasn't going to ever be a game where I felt like it was worth the time and effort that I was putting into it. And it absolutely was not worth the money I put into it. Man, do I regret buying this game. And I won't deny, there were times where I was getting really pissed off playing this game. Like, just angry, because again, I appreciate tough but fair. This is tough because it's broken as fuck. I reached a point where I gave up on this game, and we're talking, I had over a dozen hours into this because it's about a 20-hour game from what I understand. It took me about that long to get into Forspoken, and I eventually fell in love with it, whereas this game, I reached a point where I was like, it's never going to be worth it. So yeah, I do not recommend this game. Please avoid this game. Do not spend your money on it. It's just not worth it. Like, they would literally have to rebuild this game from the ground up for this to be a worthwhile purchase. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, has there ever been a game where you breached the point of being angry and just hit a zen point of, I can't do this anymore, I deserve better? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.